Welcome, everyone. Welcome to our first episode. This is a new podcast we're doing, Culture Credence. And it's going to be a weekly podcast every Tuesday where we'll talk about different pop culture, movie, video game, things that we're interested in, maybe things that you guys are interested in. My name's Will, and with me here, we have Nathan.
Hey everybody.
We're we're gonna do our best. We're gonna try this and see how this works.
And we might eventually add a video element to this, but just for the time being, it's an audio only kind of deal.
For now, you get our little Discord icons. It's the best you're gonna get.
Yeah, and our Discord icons, if you can see them, are Pokemon. And I mean, I've got Squirtle there.
You got that little
Squirtle's in
yellow
my.
rat.
Yeah, I wonder who that could be. Who could that
Uh,
little yellow mouse be?
Giuseppe?
So yeah, that was one of the topics that we definitely want to talk about on this show is Pokemon. It's one of both of our favorite franchises. We also talk some other pop culture type things. There'll probably be some Star Wars, some Marvel, Stranger Things. We'll talk some
Voltron.
other yeah, Voltron. Me and Will are big Voltron Legendary Defender fans.
Yes, sir.
So if you are a fellow Paladude out there, we would love to hear from you. We'll be talking Voltron on here. We'll also talk some other franchises. Gundam. We'll talk Gundam here in the next month or two.
I think something we're gonna try to do. We'll have these like normal episodes where we'll have conversations and talk, and then from time to time have a review. So could be a movie, it could be a game, just whatever comes to mind. Nothing specific. For the most part, I don't know what you think about this, but this isn't like a news kind of podcast. This is more of a discussion where we'll give our thoughts on things, kind of share opinions. We might have some of our friends on, talk with them too, and have a good time. We'll have a great time.
Yeah, we just want to, talk about things that are shared interests. And this is not a show where a lot of times people in some of these franchises feel like there's right and wrong opinions. That's not how we feel about it. And we just want, everybody to get to share their opinion and say what they like about things, what they don't like. So we are really excited to start this podcast. So I think on today's show, we are going to talk about some Pokemon,
Oh yeah.
kind of the state of Pokemon as we see it right now, some aspects about the games, maybe the shows. And on our next episode, we'll have a review of the latest Pokemon game, Legends CA. So you want to make sure and tune in and hear that.
All right. Well, let's see. What do you want to get into first? Got a really controversial first topic here. I think, in recent years, I feel like we could go into the quality first because that's the big one. That's the most obvious one that people are talking about. Whether you think the games are of high quality or not, it's fairly subjective. Games could be AAA quality or they could be indie, which that doesn't mean anything about the quality of the game, but
When it's
there's
kind of what
a disparity.
when it's kind of what your expectations are
Yes.
going in. Like you and I definitely we enjoy games that a large portion of the at least the vocal portion of the fans maybe didn't like. And I think some of that is sometimes people have really high expectations, and there's a reason for that. Pokemon, Nintendo are very large companies,
Right. They don't
but
spend very
uh
much to make these. I mean, it's for us, it's a lot of money, but like $10 million and you're selling 60 million units. That's significant.
well, and that might be one good place to start. I mean, we saw one of the most divisive, controversial games in the Pokemon franchise has been Scarlet and Violet, which actually
Right.
sold the most copies of any Pokemon game. So when you look online and hear the fandom kind of talk about it, generally speaking, it's a very negative reception. However, commercially, it was a huge success. And So the question is, are just a lot of people buying the game and then really not liking it? Or is there a large section of the fan base that really isn't voicing their opinion on the games? Now, I am in one camp on this. In my first playthrough of I got Scarlet, I actually loved it. I put more hours into that Pokemon game than I put into any one save file on any Pokemon game. Part of that is, the open world nature of the game. You're looking for different things in the game, different Pokemon. Um, so just part of the design of the game lends itself to more time. And then there's the DLC, which I actually enjoyed the DLC, especially Blueberry Academy, the second part of the DLC. But most people did not like this game, and I do understand, especially if you played online or if you tried to join terror raid battles. A lot of times there were performance issues, lagging things. The one time Will and I tried to play together, we had a lot of issues
Yeah.
with the game. Ran really slow. You basically couldn't even do it.
You had to
So
get together was also super just unorthodox, well, especially coming
yeah,
from, like,
really
Pokemon
hard to
X and
even
Y, which I
connect.
think is, like, the pinnacle. You have, like, your friends, acquaintances, and passerbyers, and you could just click and ask to trade, ask to battle. This one you had to was it like you each had to have a code and you had to enter the same code like you're launching a nuke or something? Like,
Yeah, yeah,
so
we had
so
to have
weird.
not one person, two
And it makes
keys.
sense. It makes sense in theory, but, like, if you have someone on your friends list on Nintendo Online, why? Why are we doing this?
Yeah, the online features of the game, I did not enjoy, and even just doing the terror raids, I would get really frustrated
Yeah.
with. It took a while to get a full group of people in there, and then once you did, there were a lot of times where the clock is ticking and you can't do anything because it's kind of lagging.
Yeah, like, everyone's
And
just sitting still.
And so the Pokemon's like doing all these animations and you can't do anything and it's taking forever, but the clock is still ticking. So those were things about the game. I agree. I didn't like those things. I did, however, really enjoy the open world nature of the games. There were certain scenery that I really liked. I liked, I thought a lot of the game was actually kind of pretty to look at, sunsets and sunrises and stars and, things like that that I did enjoy. And it felt like I was getting to really explore and go on an adventure with Pokemon, and you could have your Pokemon out and uh, do the picnic and sandwich mechanic, which
Man,
we've talked about some, but
sandwich-centric game.
very sandwich centric.
Very sandwich-centric.
And I didn't necessarily love that feature. That was not something I really loved. I did like, it was just kinda different, and you could take your own path that you wanted to. It wasn't necessarily set path
Well,
of what you had to do.
do have some beef with that. They say you could choose any path. If you went to the right side of the map first, you were going to get thrashed. I had to, like, well over level my Pokemon to be able to play that side first, and then I got to the left side and way too easy.
Yeah, it kinda seemed like so some of the situations, it kinda seemed like there were areas that just topographical features were supposed to act as barriers
Mhm.
to keep you out, which, like we were saying, you're supposed to be able to go any way you want, but a lot of times you don't have the mechanic to go where you want to go early in the game.
Well,
However,
I was able to go to some of these locations, as I progressed
y
through early on, but it was just too the difficulty level was higher
yeah,
if I went that
I think
direction.
they did not expect that there would be ways to get around some of these geographical barriers, and as a player, you're going to do that. You're
Yeah,
going to want to explore, especially in this
especially
game,
after
because
playing,
you
like, Breath of the Wild and just, like, no clipping over a mountain or something, still being
so
able to play the game.
if you did do what I mean, both of us probably did at different times, you end up in a situation where you got somewhere you weren't supposed to go. And then you can run into a situation where it's over leveled, or I ran into things where I went a different way than what the normal path was, and I realized later in the game that I had missed sections of the map and where certain Pokemon were because I had not gone the way that the game intended me to go. And so those are some things that you could say are negative, or maybe you like that type of thing. Overall, I really liked the game.
Yeah, go on. Sorry, I'll get to mine.
But I certainly understand what people had wrong with it, but I liked that they tried some different things. I kinda liked some of the characters and friends you make and things like that. I felt like there were a lot of different Pokemon from different generations, and I do have to preface this with when I played Scarlet, so I am a kid from Gen 1, I am a '90s kid, and so I was reaching this point where you say, "Oh, I don't play Pokemon anymore," after Gen 3. So I had not played Gen 4, 5, 6, 7 until even after I played Scarlet and Violet. The first game that I played post Gen 3 was Pokemon Sword. And we can talk about that game here in a second. But so some of these Pokemon that I met in Scarlet and Violet, I had not really got to play as with those Pokemon before, or maybe even some of them were new or the mechanics were new to me. So that might be part of why I liked it and so many people didn't, is I had not played a lot of games at that point in between, a Game Boy Advance game and a Nintendo Switch game. So that might be part of what I liked about it. But now I have tried to go back and play Violet, and I've, maybe put 20 or 25 hours on it, but this is not a game that I really feel like I want to replay. It's not a game where I've enjoyed the replayability. I feel like that factor on this game is a little low because a lot of it is built around you exploring the map and those types of things. So once you've done that, it's kind of hard to make yourself want to do it again, especially if you put a lot of hours into it. So, but overall, I liked it a lot better than most people. But Will, what did you think of Scarlet and Violet?
I I actually like what you said about the map. I'm gonna lead with that. It kind of felt like Death Stranding, and a lot of people had issues with that game too. Just from the aspect where you are meant to explore. Like the world is a character in this game. And it honestly it makes it feel empty sometimes. Like you're expected to find these little like moments in the world sprinkled throughout, but there's so much empty space between that it almost felt I think that's where it felt unfinished to me. There was just a lot of like blank area. Trying to think whenever I haven't played this game since it came out. I finished the whole game. I didn't get through the DLC. Um, but where was it? Going towards the electric gym at the beginning to the right, over by the water. I feel like there's a lot of areas in this game where you're just expected to know where to go or know to do an exact thing. And like I don't need a game to hold my hand, but I feel like there was a lot of oversight on a game that's supposed to be super open-ended and I don't know, like explorable because it just felt empty. I don't know. Like you go into a town and there's 5 of the same sandwich shop, and then every other building is an empty husk of a model. I just I don't know. It felt like there was no soul, and that's
Yeah,
what
you
bothered.
definitely can't. You can hardly go in like any of the buildings,
Yeah,
and
it feels like Toontown, like that Disney MMO where it's just like there's I don't know, it feels eerie almost because there's no one like around. I don't know. Like you'll find trainers and stuff, but there's just like
yeah, you're not really interacting with anybody other than main
yeah.
characters in the game.
Yeah, and you're on like a perfectly mode for the most part, like island, and it's like, yeah, it just feels kind of off. Like there's something off. But I did like the sunsets and everything. Like I'd say anything above ground level to me was beautiful, but anything below kind of like f- left a sour taste after seeing Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee and Sword and Shield. I feel like Sword and Shield was a good return to form for the series, and since then I feel like this push for open world exploration has left the overall quality of the looks and the quality of, I don't know, like linear progression through the story. They've just kind of left it behind. And it would be good if there was a plan for where they're going, but it seems like at the point that Scarlet and Violet came out, they were just kind of winging it. And that's a little weird to me from, you know, a Nintendo published game, you know.
I agree that there were things that felt unfinished and unpolished, and while I liked a lot of the graphics, a lot less harsh on it than most people are, it was rough, and there were situations where it wasn't clearly, a high-end graphic, and we won't talk about Legend ZA much because we have the review of that coming out, but just comparing those 2 games, major improvement. And part of that is a better hardware if you have the Switch 2 system like
And
we both have.
honestly, even on the Switch 1, where I played Scarlet Violet, I played Violet. I never experienced any of the graphical errors that other people had, any frame rate issues. It seemed to be fairly consistent. And I'm I tend to be pretty picky about that kind of thing. Not that it would completely ruin my experience, but it does get annoying whenever you see like a really jittery screen or like things are getting choppy. So, uh, to its, I don't know. Like a lot of people were having the issue, but I didn't have that problem, so I can't really attest to that. Um, I don't know. Like overall though, the characters really cool. I liked meeting all the characters in the game. The selection of Pokemon, I know it was controversial at the beginning. They didn't put all the Pokemon that had been in previous dexes in this game, but what they did put in the game was a lot. And you could catch evolutions of Pokemon as you played, so you didn't have to trade for Pokemon. You didn't have to train up Pokemon. You could actually explore and catch Pokemon in the dex, kind of like they would in the anime or something. And I think that was a lot more enjoyable because I like catching more than battling. Um, and it was good for me to be able to explore and do more of what I liked in the game. Or if you like to battle more, you like to train more, you could catch those lower level Pokemon, evolve them up, fill out your decks. So that's a way they gave an option that I really did like. Not to make this a review for Scarlet and Violet, but this
Right.
is one of the most recent games, and so I feel like using this as a benchmark is probably best before going back to these other games and kind of comparing some of the features.
Yeah, and I mean, there were things in Scarlet and Violet that were high quality of life
Mhm.
features, things that made being a trainer, swapping out your Pokemon,
Sandwiches,
leveling up your Pokemon
more
a lot
sandwiches.
easier, and so those types of things were good. I I like you see, I'm more of a battler trainer type
Mhm.
than catching, and that was one thing that was kind of missing in Scarlet and Violet. It's really easy to not battle very many people unless you do, like, the story missions and stuff,
Or if
and
you choose the
s
wrong route and you have to grind to to get through a boss
yeah,
fight against a
but
car.
you can easily avoid there's not, like, long
Right.
routes of trainers you have to play battle like in other games, that you can easily avoid them, there's not very many of them, you have to find them, so that is definitely an element of change. And one thing though, we talked about Sword and Shield.
Mhm.
So this is another game that a lot of people in the fandom don't seem to like as much as we do. This is a game where both of us really like Sword and Shield. It's one of my favorite games, to be quite honest. And I thought that was exactly what a Pokemon game should be. It had better graphics than Scarlet and Violet had.
Looks very pretty, especially like on the base Switch even, not even the OLED. The colors and the richness of the environments is just very nice to look at. I remember when the trailers were initially coming out for this game, and it was like it was right off the coattail of Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee, and those were visually nice. You could see every chin hair on Pikachu, but this game like it really captures in a I don't know, more true to the art style way how beautiful the world is. Without it feeling artificial, because that's something that Scarlet and Violet struggled with. Like it did have really nice skies. There were some good textures on things, but there was this just discrepancy between anything land based and anything sky or water or like Pokemon related, where everything just kind of had its own art style or things didn't look finished, like it was a model without shading or proper shading. It didn't have enough like extra textures because they're trying to load in a significantly larger portion of map at the same time, even
Yeah, and
larger than the wild zones.
you would have stuff like totally like freak out,
Pop in and
meld
out.
together and and go through rocks and all kinds of stuff. But I felt like Sword and Shield was,
And it
like pretty
wasn't
much perfectly
100 hours.
executed. Yeah, it was a
Not
pretty
every
short game.
game
Like,
needs to take all of your time all the time. And I think it did a good job of being respectful of your time. I think it took me like 25 hours, maybe 30 to beat this game. But then, you have more game to play. You have you know, catching all the Pokemon. You have the DLC, which was immaculate. I think the first one's just okay, but then the Crown Tundra feels like a whole new game. And you get these experiences that they don't feel too small, but they're digestible enough. They feel more fulfilling than some of the stuff that I feel like was happening in Scarlet and Violet's DLC.
well, and like in Sword and Shield as a better game than Scarlet and Violet in a lot of ways is one of the key elements of that to me is Galar feels like a real region with a
Yes.
real culture, and you obviously feel the parallel between the UK and Galar. And
Between
I
the
really
characters,
enjoyed
the environments, all of it is very distinct to that region.
yeah, they really lean into Galar being its own thing, and it's really cool, and I love the whole story and the ancient heroes and figuring all that out, and I like that they made things differently. You have a tournament style instead of the Elite Four type situation. I prefer that. And I just thought that the game took big steps, and on all these gambles, they all paid off, in my
Even
opinion.
the gimmick, like if you look at the gimmicks for like Gigantamaxing and Gigamaxing and uh, Pokemon Sword and Shield, like I feel like it was still unique enough, like where you would have you know, Snorlax with an island on its stomach, or like Eevee with a giant tail, and like they're all getting hyped up in this stadium, and it's always a really exciting moment. But then in Scarlet and Violet, their whole thing is we have a crystal on their head, and it's, designed by whatever Pokemon type it is. It isn't even unique to the Pokemon, and it felt kind of lazy, kind of lame. I never really
Yeah,
wanted to use it because it doesn't look good. It just kind of
yeah.
adds this plumage or growth on top of your Pokemon.
Terrastalization is a big miss to me.
Yeah.
I didn't enjoy it. I didn't see a huge advantage in it. And like you said, I don't like the way it looks. I thought
Yeah.
that was something that could have looked cool, but it didn't. And,
If the Pokemon turned
you
crystal or something, that'd be neat. Or like, some kind of different design, but it wasn't unique to the Pokemon whatsoever.
yeah. And I definitely think Dynamax Gigantamax was, especially Gigantamax, was a lot better than Terrastalization, which I think is one of, if not the worst gimmick that Pokemon has tried. It's just
Mhm.
very bleh. And so that's definitely something I didn't like about Scarlet and Violet. But
I think a lot of these newer games have had really, really nice gimmicks like Z moves, Mega Evolution. Like these are all like super nice looking, very fun. You get to collect the items, gives you more to do in the game. It has more open opportunity for battling. So not only you have the collection aspect, the battling aspect. It kind of has this all-encompassing thing that celebrates everything the game is. But then you have terrestrialization, which kind of really only is battle centric, and then even so, it just kind of falls flat because it doesn't have that pizzazz that the other ones do, in my opinion, at least.
no, and like when they first introduced it, I was thinking, "Oh, this could be really cool. It could be really
Mhm.
advantageous in battle." Like if you pre-ordered the game or whatever, you got the
Pikachu, right?
Pikachu with the
Beloved.
flying Terra type and it knows fly. So I was like, "Oh yeah, this is going to be great. I can terrestrialize and then a ground type move won't be able to hit it." It just wasn't a good mechanic and it just didn't really work and it looked silly and
Yeah.
so I loved the game by and large, but I did not like terrestrialization at all, and I barely ever used it. And
I feel like those.
they just.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say that I feel like they're really trying to push it,
Yeah.
and it's just not cool. And so,
Yeah, that's the biggest
it's
thing. The
something.
rule of cool is like primary. It's like we're not the target audience for this game. Like people in grade school. Like, and if
And
they
that's
don't
true.
think it's
That's true. I
cool,
mean,
if I were still that age, I don't think I would think this was cool. So,
no, I don't think so either. And so, I mean, as far as the state of Pokemon, we both really like Let's Go Eevee, Let's Go
yeah.
Pikachu. I thought Let's Go Pikachu was a great game. I haven't played
Especially for
Let's Go
like an
Eevee.
introduction for beginners. It's like it has everything that Pokemon is except for fighting the Pokemon. You can fight trainers and it has its own issues. Like you have long strings of trainers that you have to fight in a row with no gap, and that kind of gets a little tedious. But like it was a good thing for people who may not play the game to like ease into these other games because they may not want to play a traditional like JRPG experience, and this game offers something a little different. Also, being able to use the Pokemon Go throw mechanic with the Joy-Con, that's something they just didn't bring back, and I find that to be something that is super. I don't know. I miss that a lot. I think that having that option at all adds some kind of fun and whimsy to the game that you just don't get by clicking a button.
Well, and I felt like what could have been really boring and tedious, the catching it rewards you
Yeah,
enough that it's worth catching. And you do like it's not that there's no battling in the game, like you said, you still battle the trainers.
right. And
You
the
just
gym
don't
leaders.
have to do battles with all the wild Pokemon. So in a lot of ways, it's almost like an upgrade. And like you said, I thought it looked great. I thought, it's funny how you could ride Pokemon in different ways
Yeah,
and
yeah.
you can fly on Pokemon.
And being able
I
to
mean, I thought
interact
it
with them like you could in X and Y even, but to, a different extent. X and Y, you could do the Pokeyami and interact with your Pokemon, feed them, train them that way. This game had a similar-ish mechanic, and now you just don't get that. Like Scarlet and Violet, you could feed your Pokemon sandwiches, but like I didn't really find myself doing that ever because there was no advantage to me
you
to do
could
that.
play with them in Scarlet and
I mean,
Violet. So that was pretty, and you could like
but did you get
wash them and things like
stats
that.
for doing that, or like,
You did get experience points. Your Pokemon did get XP for that. But I don't know. I don't know that it was as much as there have been in other
yeah,
games.
because
Like
you
I
could
think you
just
got more
IV
in
train
Sword
your
and Shield
Pokemon
than
and
you
stuff.
did. Like I think you got more XP playing with your Pokemon in Sword and Shield than you did in Scarlet and Violet. And really, a lot of things about Sword and Shield were just a better version of what you would later get in
Yeah.
Scarlet and Violet.
Yeah, it seems like
But I mean,
oh, go ahead.
oh no, you go.
I've been noticing a lot of the changes that have been happening have just been existing features getting stripped of what makes them fundamentally good in favor of just some kind of like different thing. I think the best places to describe this are like at least from the most recent one that I can think of is the catching mechanics in Legends Arceus moving into Legends CA, being able to like hide and cover, go back into hiding, throw a Pokeball from wherever and hit a Pokemon. They just completely missed in this new game. The Legends ZA, you could throw it from anywhere, and that became a strategy that you would use to catch these Pokemon. But in Legends ZA, you had to be like right up on them, and by the time you were on them, you're out of cover. You can't go back into hiding and cover. You have to be in an exact range to catch them, and by the time you're in that range, they see you. It's just like a lot of these features that were in a game previous that they nailed first try, they just put it in the next game and then just strip the features from it and take away what made it fun. And I think that's a missed opportunity to improve
I
upon
think
and make better.
Pokemon is, and however ambitious or adventurous they're being, you can debate. But I think Pokemon is trying to figure out what they want to do
Mhm.
and where they want their games to go and different features and stuff. And you can kind of feel that they're experimenting with things and seeing how people are going to like it. And you can do that because people are going to buy it.
Right.
And so, like, and we'll talk about this on our review, but you and I both thought, a lot of people were, I don't want to do Legends EA. I don't want it to all be in one city. You and I actually like that. Now, I think we both would have liked to have seen the rest of Kalos like that as
Right.
well.
And I was
But
very skeptical at first, but like, the more you play, the city does become a character. There are a lot of very rich experiences that are sprinkled throughout through side quests, main story, and I think that was one of its strengths, actually.
well, and it kind of, a lot of what people criticize about Scarlet and Violet and being empty and not having character and
Mhm.
those types of things. Okay, well, they answered that with, instead of this massive open world map, here's a city that we really polished,
The polar
and
opposite.
yeah, the absolute
No
polar
sandwiches.
opposite.
There are no
Yeah,
sandwiches.
you're not eating sandwiches.
Donuts this time. You
And
have to make donuts.
oh, yeah, and that's a feature I don't like,
I love
but
making donuts.
it paid off. Like, doing that and focusing on one city to me worked really well.
Yeah.
So I don't know what they're going to do. So if we take, let's talk, say, the Switch games. Okay. So for Switch, primarily, if you're talking like more mainline type games, you have Sword and Shield, you have Let's Go Pikachu, Let's Go Eevee, you have Legends Arceus, you have Scarlet and Violet,
Mm,
and you
I
have
would consider
Legends.
Legends and Let's Go and their side thing.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't call them like main
I
series
see. I see.
games, but just as I didn't want to have to name like all the Pokemon Snap and
Yeah,
Detective
Mystery
Pikachu and
Dungeon.
everything like that. But so the primary games that most Pokemon players are going to play, I feel like is a very positive group of games and a positive direction. Now, there are
Massive spread
things.
of games too. Like no two of these are the same. Not even in the slightest.
Yeah, I mean, they're very different. You got a lot of games. I mean, they're putting out quite a bit of content. They might have been putting out too much content
Mhm.
during this time period on 1, 2 systems. But I am very hopeful about the direction of Pokemon. I hope they don't just phone it in and say no matter what we make, people are going to buy it. But I don't really see that being the direction because I think they responded to people's criticisms
Right.
really well in Legends ZA.
And we know there's a, 10th generation announcement coming very soon, and allegedly they're already working on a third Legends game. So we'll see what they cook up with that, because having the first one be in ancient Sinnoh and Hisui and then moving to a modern day setting 5 years after X and Y. Very different, you don't know what to expect. There's so many possibilities for stories and being able to experiment in these games. We talked about this in the Legends EA review. This is a great place for them to experiment in these Legends games outside the main storyline. Like, you can still have your core JRPG, baby's first JRPG kind of experience, and then in these games, try something like Colosseum does. Do a different battle mechanic, do a different catch mechanic, have a more in depth story for something that may not get developed in a main story game. I don't know. Very, very interesting things they could do.
Yeah, and the Legends games really do it's so many opportunities, and kind of the fan base kind of thought, "Oh, Legends is ancient stuff," because that's what the first game was, and we all kind of expected that going
Right.
forward, but that's not what it was, and so they could do anything with a Legends game, and like you said, I mean, that might be something that they need to think about is, okay, when we make a main series game, when we make Gen 10 or going forward, maybe that needs to be very much the formula with some developments and changes that we've always had and very linear, whether you want to be the 8 gems, kind of like what we said earlier, Scarlet and Violet, excuse me, Sword and Shield. You took the very linear type of game and expanded it, made it better graphics, those
Even
types of
having the
things. So
wild
maybe,
zones. Like, the wild
yes,
zones, you can have the best of both worlds and still keep your core experience while experimenting, and they really show that that can pay off. These wild zones were, you can say it's an open zone or whatever they wanted to call it, but it was a little bit of an open world experience, and you would go through these large areas, the weather would change, the time of day would change, and I feel like they pulled it off better than Scarlet and Violet did. It looked really nice in these wild zones, and I feel like if the entire map looked like that in Scarlet and Violet, a lot of people wouldn't have these complaints.
no, yeah, I agree with you. And I mean, maybe it's better to do it that way, where it's only certain areas
Mhm.
that are open world wild zones. And this
Yeah,
was
they're
actually,
massive still. Like, it's not like you aren't exploring. If they could somehow, load the areas between these, have several wild zones as your towns or areas around towns, that might be a good route to go in or something to try.
well, and you and I both, we've talked about this a lot off the show, but there were locations in Sword and Shield that
Yeah.
were so unique, so much character that we both really liked. And we talked about this, but one of my favorites in any Pokemon game is the Glimwood Tangle.
Yes.
I mean,
It's
the whole
beautiful.
lead up to the town is you're walking through this dark and enchanted forest with glowing mushrooms, and there's Pokemon that are very mysterious and unique walking all around and you can interact with them. And, it's not just walking down a straight path. You're twisting and turning and climbing over things. And I just thought it's one of the best locations I've ever seen in a Pokemon game by far.
Agreed.
And I would love to see something like that in a future game for sure.
Yeah, I agree. The towns for a while had been kind of lacking. I cannot recall specific towns in a Pokemon game for a while, but where they excel usually is the characters. Like, they have some of the best character designers in games working on these. You have super iconic characters, or even if, most people don't know them, you can recognize, hey, that is from a Pokemon game. And they all have their own sort of thing that they do or things that they like or don't like. And I think Sword and Shield did a good job of that. Like, I can remember most of the gym leaders from Sword and Shield. I couldn't tell you the Elite Four as we were talking about from several of the other games. So
Well,
really
that's definitely
high quality stuff
like
there.
what you're hearing from the vocal fan base is generally, oh, Generation 4, Gen 5 are the best and all this kind of stuff. My personal feeling is, like you said, a lot of the stuff in the middle generation,
Yeah.
games is very generic, very bland, very unmemorable. Yeah, I don't remember a lot of the Elite Four members. I don't remember hardly any of the gym leaders. I don't remember the towns or their names. It just, even like Sinnoh. So, in just the span of a few years, because like I said, I had not played the Gen 4 games, I played um, Shining Pearl. I played Legends Arceus, which is not really the same thing, but is in the Sinnoh universe. I played one of the original games, played Diamond, and then I played Brilliant Diamond. So just in the last few years, I've played all of those. I still couldn't tell you who most of the gym leaders are or what the town names are. I know the map in general. I know the general plot line, the Pokemon that are there and everything,
There's
but I don't remember all
mm,
that. And really, the rest of it is just kind of boring.
yeah.
And
It's a really
Gen
talky
5,
game too.
yeah, oh, so much talking. And Gen 5, we both kind of feel this way. You had trouble even getting to where you could play Gen 5
Yeah.
because of the motion
Yes.
sickness issue.
Yes.
But Gen 5 and their remakes to me, okay, like, I like them. They're good, but
I'd be
they're
excited to play a remake of it. Like,
make
because
of
if
it.
they can do something like Sword and Shield does with some of the towns in that game, I think it could be really good.
Yeah, and that's part of why I feel so positive. Like the state of Pokemon going
Oh,
forward, some
man.
people are apocalyptic about it. I think it's very positive. You can take those old games and turn them into something lively.
Even
And
some of those really boring, like, desert segments could be wild zones. Like, it's just, I know more of that, but like, that is an opportunity. Like, you have all of these items that you can use
well,
now that they're in the
all of
jungle.
those routes you hated in those old games,
Yeah,
caves and infinite surfing, those could be turned into really cool things and where you're interacting with overworld Pokemon and not
right.
the random encounters, which I think is a big upgrade in these games, is not constantly having random encounters. But
Now you have scheduled day-night cycle shift cutscenes,
yeah,
unskippable cutscenes.
yeah, yeah. Here's your Zubat.
Yeah,
It's a day
probably
night
like
cutscene.
10 hours of my 100-hour experience are cutscenes switching from day to night in ZA.
Yes, there were some things about ZA where it's like, "Okay, can we not do that anymore?"
Yeah, but
But so I think we would say that it's right to be optimistic about the direction of Pokemon. Now, would we say right now is the best time of Pokemon games? I mean, that's a debate we could have. Mean, I'm from Gen 1, Gen 2, Gen 3. So it's hard for me to say anything is better than those games and the character and the soundtrack for sure. I love the way Pokemon games sounded in Gen 1
oh
and
yeah.
Gen 2 more than any other game probably. But if I look at even those games, we take Fire Red and Leaf Green, which are two games that are beloved by everybody pretty much. Are those games, which obviously you're dealing with totally different capabilities at the time versus what we have now. Do I like those games better than Sword and Shield, Legends, ZA? I've played them a bunch of times, but I don't know that I'd say I liked them better. Maybe when I was a kid I would have, but I think I think right now everyone's complaining about Pokemon, but we are in a really good time to be a Pokemon
Yeah.
fan, in my opinion.
With that, I think that the last several times where it's been really good, of course, Gen 3 when they tried to reboot the series immediately after like two hit successes. Um, Gen 3 felt like a really good time. Gen 6, they were celebrating everything up until that point with, some anniversary stuff. We had a remake of Gen 3, let you collect all of the legendary and mythic Pokemon again. A lot of good stuff there. And then, now we have everything we had before plus new stuff, and this new stuff is built upon how many years now? 30 this year of Pokemon?
Yeah, 30 years.
Crazy. So, 30 years of Pokemon, some people might say it needs to be further by now, but Like, how much can you change in a game before it becomes a different thing, you know?
No, I totally agree. And like, this is Pokemon. If you want to play a game that is hyper realistic graphics with the type of game features that are in other games, go play another game.
Yeah,
You know, this
they
is
tried that, with, Legends Arceus. They really tried a different genre, and I respect that, and it was good. I liked that game a lot, um, but, it's not in the main line, and it was a good place to experiment, but these mainline games, like we were saying, Sword and Shield is just a great return to form for the series, and it's a good place for Pokemon to be, and I really hope that they return to something similar to that at some point.
yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. I'm hoping the negative feedback some people have given doesn't impact Pokemon's idea of going back to that. And you talked about Gen 6. I would be remiss if I didn't say I loved Gen 6 going back and playing it as an adult because obviously I didn't play it as a kid, but I've played X and Y now and I loved both of them. And
It was very
the
serious while staying, fun, like, a lot of sense of discovery with these new Mega Evolved Pokemon that we hadn't seen before.
and like you said, I mean, it has a kid-friendly, happy tone to the game, but then there's a very serious
Very sinister
very
nature.
serious things going on, and I love the Kalos Elite Four situation. The way that is done
Yeah,
in X and Y is so much more dramatic, so much more weight than a lot of the other Elite Fours. Definitely I would say definitely my favorite Elite Four, the way that they designed it and everything compared to the other games.
there was a lot of good design intent in that game, and I think that's a something that's missing lately is you have a lot of features, but none of them are intentional enough. Like, they don't jive with each other. I feel like, in X and Y, things were polished to the point where it made sense. All of the menus were connected in such a way that it felt natural. All of the features felt like they complemented each other. In these newer games past Sword and Shield, it feels like I don't know, like there's just this discrepancy between different features and it makes it feel super disjointed and jarring when you're playing. And you can immediately tell when something's off. Like I like Legend ZA, but it got to the point where after like the first gameplay loop, I could tell exactly what the gameplay loop would be of like dialogue, three side quests, three boss fights, and what was a challenger ticket thing. And it would be
Yeah,
those four items in order every time until the end of the
it's
game and in the
repetitive.
DLC, and you could just immediately tell that. They didn't really mesh together. They just kind of sat on their own. You could pick them apart.
Well, and I think that's an aspect of they want people to have more open world, have more control over what they do, I guess, but
Yeah.
it doesn't always work that well,
Right, and if you play it
because
as intended, where you do everything in the game, it makes it even worse.
yeah, it can get kind of tedious at times,
Yeah.
doing it that way instead of like we said, instead of the linear building up to the climactic points in the game, type of thing that we're used to with mainline Pokemon games. Now, one thing I do want to say before we run out of time. So, when we're talking state of Pokemon, there is one thing I am not optimistic about. And I'm probably more of a fan of the anime than you would
Sandwich making.
probably be.
Need more sandwich making.
In the anime. And I say this as I understand the show is intended for kids, and I tried to give it the best chance that I could. I watched the first couple parts to Horizons on Netflix. I hate it. And I tried to like it. it. I gave it a bunch of episodes worth of my time. I really don't like it. And I like that they're trying to be ambitious with it and do different things and use different characters and everything, but to me, it's just not working. I don't like pretty much any of the characters. I find the tone is, I don't like it. And it's just, I think we're kind of hopping around and I just don't really enjoy anything about the new series other than I think it looks pretty good, I guess, but I don't really know what we're doing here. And for me, and I'll talk about this some on some other shows, but I felt like the original series, especially Kanto and Orange Islands, but also the Gold and Silver series and Johto and X and Y, Kalos were probably the peak. I personally,
Like,
I understand that the
too.
I understand that the art style of the Sun and Moon Alola series made a lot of people not like it. When I watched the first episode or two of it, I was like, "What is this?" But I ended up loving the Sun and Moon series. It's so much fun. There's so much going on. You get to see Ash finally become a champion. I there's a lot of heart to that series, and it's fun. And you're seeing Ash interact with his Pokemon in a lot different way than you normally do. He's living with a few Pokemon at the time,
And
and
they're
they
also
live
calling back
together.
to the old series a lot. Like, it's fun for old generations and new, I think.
Yes, I think that the Alola series has a lot for everybody. And like people say, oh, it's super kiddie and childish. It seems that way at first, but it's really not just because it's upbeat and funny at times and silly. There's a lot going on that can be pretty heavy. And honestly, if you want like emotional Pokemon episodes, there are episodes in the Sun and Moon series that are like gut wrenching, especially compared to what you've seen in other Pokemon series. And definitely, I would say the saddest episodes I've seen were in that series. I also really, I know it's polarizing. I liked the Journeys series, and I especially liked how they handled Ash in the World Coronation series and Masters 8 and all of that, the battles I thought were really good. I liked him going to different regions and seeing different Pokemon and not quite doing the same. That's the thing about the Sun and Moon series and the Journey series. Rather than just, like we were saying, the linear Ash collects 8 gym badges and he battles in a regional tournament, it was a lot different. And Ash is doing different things. In Alola, you're seeing these same characters over and over, and instead of them just being one off characters. In Journeys, you're seeing him interact with people he's already interacted with, going to places he's been before, going to new places, exploring Galar. So I really liked those series. And I know some people don't, but I really liked them. So I liked the direction Pokemon was going in very much in Gen 6, 7, and 8. I do not like the direction Pokemon is going in Gen 9, the series, at all. And I don't know if that, I don't so I love Ash. I know a lot of people don't like Ash. I have been attached to Ash since I was a little kid because I was 4 or 5 years old when he was on TV being my favorite protagonist. However, I don't think the series has to have Ash. I don't think the flaw is that Ash is not in the show anymore. I When you look at the other media that Pokemon puts out, whether it be Pokemon Origins, Pokemon Generations, Pokemon Evolutions, or some of these shorts that they do, Twilight Wings, things like that. Those are excellent. And so, no, they're not a core series, but Pokemon can put out, a TV show or a movie or a short series without Ash and it'd be awesome.
Yeah.
So the problem with Horizons is not that they don't have Ash. The problem with Horizons is it's not a good series and none of the characters are likable.
And
And
there's also
it's
this lack of, like, discovery, Like, I remember, like, in the original series, like, sometimes they'd go to you remember the ghost town that they went to? Like, the old, like, mining town?
yes.
there were things like that where it's still in this established region, but it feels like such a unique experience from the other episodes, and you have this sense of, like, mystery and curiosity that you just don't get when all the characters know about every Pokemon there already is, you know? Like, it feels
Yeah,
weird.
and that's something that I think people miss about Gen 1 and what people tend to like about it is everything was new. All the Pokemon were new. Everything about Pokemon was new. You were learning everything. The
And I think
characters
that's
were
a good thing
learning
about Gen
everything.
3 as well because, Gen 3 being a reboot of the series, you have almost no old Pokemon. Like, it's all new stuff. And they've tried to do that recently as well. I feel like Sword and Shield did that quite a bit, and I think that's something that I liked about Sword and Shield is that most of the Pokemon you find are from Sword and Shield, not from other games. And you get further into it, and there are plenty of Pokemon from other games, but a majority of the Pokemon you're going to encounter are from Sword and Shield. Same thing in X and Y, another game that we both liked. They really focused on Pokemon that were from Gen 6 and not Pokemon from random other generations. So that's kind of it helped
Well,
build the
and
narrative that this is a unique region with stuff exclusive to it and not just any other place.
and I think that's one of the weaknesses with Scarlet and Violet and
Yeah.
thus Horizons the series. Its Pokédex, the Pokemon of that region are not great. Let's just be transparent. And I think that the Pokemon of other regions are by and large better. I mean, even the best Pokemon that most people like from Scarlet and Violet, okay, whether that's Paldean Wooper, Clodsire, you
What's
know,
that?
Tinkatink, people
Yeah.
that is a new Pokemon. But a
That
lot
one's
of the
pretty good,
Pokemon,
but I don't remember the names of any of these Pokemon either.
it's hard to remember these names anymore, the new ones, but a lot of the Pokemon people like about Scarlet and Violet are just essentially regional variants, whether that's Paldean Tauros, whether it's Toadschool, those are just Pokemon from another region and with a reskin. And I like them, but I don't think the Paldean Pokedex is super strong. And so,
I
you know,
also don't think they were featured in a meaningful way. Like, uh, I'm gonna say like Sun and Moon. I think they featured regional Pokemon in a very meaningful way. No matter what you were doing, there would be some kind of plot point relative to that. And there was a reason for them to be like that in that region, whether it's, Raichu having a surfboard and having a dual typing or like, something else. It's just not something that Scarlet and Violet really emphasized. They were just that way because they were that way.
well, and I feel like we've kind of lost, you mentioned, in Gen 1, some of these, what we would call filler episodes.
Right.
Gen 1 moved really quickly. If you go back and look how many episodes there were and how quickly he's going from one gym to the other, a lot of the so-called filler episodes end up being the most memorable episodes, and they are each like accomplishing a purpose of teaching you about this new Pokemon, that sort of thing. And Sun and Moon is the same type of way. And you get to see, like I was mentioning earlier, you get to see Rockruff and Litten and Rowlet, grow up together as like a family
Yeah.
in a house setting. And you get to see, Litten is acting like a cat. How was a cat act like with a puppy Pokemon? You're getting to see that in ways you wouldn't get to see that in other series. I just feel like I don't know. I don't know if Horizons is trying to do that sort of thing, but it's not working. And I finally just got to the point where I was like, I can't watch this anymore. I mean, it's a total waste of my time, and
You
I
need
just
to
don't
watch
enjoy it.
real shows like Breaking Bad and The Office.
So, I mean, you could say, well, you're an adult, you shouldn't be watching it anyway, and that's fair. It's not for me. But as an adult, I don't enjoy Horizons, and I
And
don't feel
comparatively, like you're not. It's not like you're not watching these other series alongside it. Like you have very positive things about some of the new ones, and this one specifically falls flat for you.
Yes, I am definitely not "Oh, I'm a Gen 1er" on the animated series.
Yeah.
I do think the original series might be the best, or it might be my favorite, but to me, I see a lot of the series, Gen 1, Gen 6, 7, 8, I see them as extremely comparable, and I have very positive view of them, but I do not have Horizons. So, please do something else, Pokemon, whether that's your other animation, but I also am kinda tired of Netflix having the streaming
Dude, I'm
situation.
sick of Netflix having everything. They also have that JoJo's
Yes.
Bizarre Adventure show, and up until that point, super faithful to like the manga source material, really good. And then this last season that came out, they used a lot of like random CG that was like unfinished. They put the first half of the series out as like at the same time instead of like trickling it. And then we had to wait like I think 8 to 10 months for the other half of the season. And it was I don't know, they just don't handle things very well. For a while they were doing animated stuff super well, bringing on some like really talented people, but now they just kind of they're more of a producer, you know? Like they don't and they don't even do that very well. Like it's just
Yeah. I feel like a lot of things Netflix has done over the last several years are not they're
it
not
used to
good, they're
you if something was airing on Netflix, you would know that is airing on Netflix because it would be very well advertised. It would be very specific feeling to Netflix, very high quality. And I feel like they've kind of been buying up way too many generic things and just kind of like left the more polished animations to rot that they have. They had a big initiative for a while to like really work on some high quality animation stuff and it's just kind of fallen off.
well, and
Be
I that's
another
an
topic for another day.
yeah, we could definitely talk about Netflix on some of these episodes, but I feel like the art style of the Gen 1 series and
Wait, we're
okay, so
back. Um,
we had a power outage, so might have a little bit of hiccup in the audio here.
it's okay.
But
We were at the very end of the episode.
yes, we were just about done with the episode. Just putting a bow on the thought we had. Anyway, I was saying thought the Gen 1 and Gen 6 art style was really, really top tier. And then while I think Journeys and stuff had pretty good art style, I think that what we have on Pokemon via Netflix, and some of these the style that these newer series have been in aren't quite as good. But so, Will, do you have anything you want to add about the state of Pokemon before we move into closing this episode out?
I think I've said all I want to say for this one. I will say, completely unrelated. If anyone has any like opinions or topics you want us to cover, just let us know. Like to gauge what everyone's interested in, and hopefully we can make some stuff that people want to hear about and stuff that we want to talk about. We're aiming for Tuesdays, right? Every Tuesday release schedule. Um, and we'll try to get those out as regularly as possible. You know, if we had to have to pre-record them, we will. And reviews, Gundam one upcoming in March, maybe second week of March. We'll look at for the original Gundam series, and we'll have some exciting stuff for Pokemon to talk about. I know one thing that we've been discussing is having a discussion about um, each Pokemon from specific generations. And that might be a multi-episode thing, but oh, his power went out again. So we'll call that an episode for now. Thank you guys for listening or watching, and we'll hope to catch you on the next one. Thank you guys.